we're all going to introduce ourselves, our names, our pronouns, and our major, or whatever we're doing on campus right now. So I am Price. I am non-binary. I go by they, them pronouns, and I am a social work major.
I'm Bailey. I'm genderqueer. I go by they, them pronouns, and my majors are biochemistry and women's studies.
I'm Charlie. I use he, him pronouns. I would identify as a trans man, meaning I'm like female to male. So I study psychology at UNR.
My name is Audrey. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a women's studies and anthropology major.
All right, awesome. So we do have a series of questions that we are going to ask, and we're just going to discuss them with our experiences. So the first is, how do you feel your identity as a transgender person impacts your experience on the UNR campus? What has your experience been? Does anyone like to start?
I know that's like a hard question.
It is, to just kind of jump into.
So broad.
It is broad. That's the point, just to get us talking, because we don't want just like yes or no answers or short ones, just the varied experiences. So I guess I can start off with mine because I have been talking about it recently with our identity check-ins. And so I definitely feel that my identity as a transgender person is super relevant to not only my education, but also just my overall experience at UNR. Just because I'm literally constantly terrified about how my gender is being perceived. And as a result, I spend as little time on campus as I actually can, which is obviously detrimental to my education. I don't know, it's really hard, and especially considering on the days when I do try really, really hard to pass as anything that is not a woman, or just even make people not immediately assume that I'm a woman. It doesn't work. It never has, no matter how hard I try. And so, as a result of that, I generally just present feminine anyway, because that's what I know how to do, and at least if I'm being misgendered, then it'll be because that's how I'm presenting that day. But it doesn't make it any easier when people call me the wrong name or the wrong pronouns. Like in class today, my teacher just kept doing that, even though like I've explained to them my situation as a transgender person. And inside I'm just like, why? Why do you assume I am a woman, but like I look like this? So I guess it's kind of easy to assume that. Anybody else?
I'll talk, I guess, a little bit. My experience hasn't been, I would say it's overall neutral toward positive, probably, on campus. I've been received pretty well by my peers and by my professors. And my situation has been it's been a journey here, because sort of now I am, the trans community uses terms like passing and stealth, and I'm sort of both of those. So passing meaning I sort of pass as male. People look at me and they sort of perceive me as male, and it never really crosses their mind that I'm trans, unless I sort of divulge that. And that's sort of what being stealth is, that I can just walk around and people sort of perceive me as cis, which has its pros and cons, definitely. It's nice sometimes when I don't want to feel unsafe that I can just kind of walk around and I can enter a male restroom or the gym locker room and sort of feel more or less invisible, I guess. But then there are also some negatives that come with that, is like I lose visibility. Like I walk around and people don't see that I'm trans, and like that is hard too, because like that's a big part of my identity. That's a big part of what has shaped me as a human being. And so I feel like when people don't see that about me, they're sort of missing a big part of my experience as a human being, which is interesting. Yeah, now that I'm passing, people just go ahead and use he, him pronouns before I even ask them to, which is interesting because prior to passing, it wasn't like that really. So, yeah, it's been a weird thing. Such is life, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. I think mine has been pretty neutral because either, like, I don't know, sometimes I'll, like, if I actually take the time to tell people my pronouns, which depending on the situation, sometimes I do, or sometimes I'm like, okay, either I'm going to be having such little interaction with this person, I don't want to take the time to actually try to, like, explain my identity to this person, so I'm going to deal with getting misgendered until I don't have to deal with this person ever again. Or with some people, like, I work on campus in one of the labs, and I have just not attempted to explain it to anyone in the lab, because I'm like, I don't know, science people can be weird sometimes. But, I don't know, it's been, I sometimes try to explain it, and people are just like, yeah, and then they just, you're like, they didn't get it. Because then they say she and keep talking about whatever. I'm like, okay, I mean, were you trying to listen? Oh well. But no, it's been pretty neutral, because I don't know, sorry, babbling. Anyway, I personally haven't, like, felt like in danger or things on campus. But there have been people who are just ignorant. Oh, but being a women's studies major is pretty rad because a lot of the professors are, like, know about that, so they've been really cool about using pronouns and things, so.
My experience has been kind of weird, because I am not, like, out to any of my professors or my work because it's just, I'm not comfortable mixing those two things just yet. But I tend to dress pretty androgynously anyway, and especially when I'm sort of leaning towards the more feminine side of that. I mean, I've had people yell slurs at me on campus on more than one occasion. I've had people, like, drive by in their cars and, like, shout at me. So I can't really say that I feel safe on campus. Like, I don't know, I've had to call my friends to, like, come and pick me up because I didn't feel comfortable walking home. But yeah, I don't know. I think also I'm really lucky to be so involved with the community on campus, because I think if I didn't have the friends that I do and wasn't a part of, like, Christian Union on campus, I don't think I would feel comfortable or safe or supported on campus at all. But that's just me.
On to the second question.
Yeah. Alright. So then question number 2. What do you feel the campus's attitudes are about transgender people?
Bad.
I think varied.
I don't know. I don't. Reno, man.
True. Yeah, even if not bad, like, a lot of, like, even if someone is not completely negative, like, there's someone, people just aren't informed.
Yeah.
Even if they aren't.
Yeah, definitely lack of education, lack of exposure has led to a lot of more negative attitudes, I think. Definitely.
Yeah. And also, like, it's just so painful, like, if you are out to your professor and they, like, gender or sexuality comes up in a class and they're just, like, really pointed at, like, looking at you like, am I fucking it up? Am I messing it up? And it's just, they really, really are, because they honestly don't know, and even if you try to explain it, it's like a couple minute crash course, or even just like an email with graphs. I've sent graphs. It's just not enough to make them understand, and it's so painful because they are trying, and it's not enough. But I appreciate the effort, and I tell them that I appreciate the effort, but it's physically painful.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in, like, anthropology classes and stuff where they'll, like, have a little section on gender, and I've had professors, like, make transphobic jokes and just be generally disgusting, like, in a lecture hall of, like, 300 people, and it's like, you really don't think that there's a single person in this room that this applies to? So I think, I don't know, I think Reno's just like that. There's not a lot of exposure or awareness, especially, I mean, I'm originally from Portland and I spent a lot of my life in Vegas, so like it was really sort of a culture shock coming up here and like, wow, I really need to watch myself up here, so.
Yeah, and again for me, right, like I'm sort of invisible unless I tell people, and it's interesting to feel people out on things, sort of, or like probe them before I sort of come out to people, right? They don't know that they're speaking in the presence of a transgender person around me always, and you know, like topics come up, like, you know, the hot topic of like Caitlyn Jenner or something like that, and it's a separate thing in itself. But you know, then they have things to say, and I'm like, oh really? Yeah.
Is that how you feel?
And so it's interesting to sort of see how people feel, both when they don't know they're speaking to a trans person versus when they do, right? When somebody has sort of known me for a long time or something, and then that topic comes up, and then they're like more careful, more
Gets
tentative.
really uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're like, oh gosh, like I know that like you identify this way, so like I'm gonna be really careful what I'm gonna say, and I'm like,
But it's to the point of like being patronizing. And it's like, I'm an adult, come on, we can talk about this.
It's an interesting dynamic to see.
Like, I'd rather be in a situation where somebody was comfortable enough to talk that way to me so that I could be comfortable enough to call them out and, like, legitimately say, okay, but this is how it actually is.
Yeah, because I think it's important to differentiate between ignorance and hate, because like ignorance, they might just not know. Like I've encountered plenty of people who like, it's just not something that's ever occurred to them and they've never been exposed to it. So they might say some offensive things, but it's just because they genuinely don't know. And if you tell them, they really will try. But there's also plenty of people that will actively hate you, and you gotta know which one you're talking to.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize where you have opportunity to sort of educate and inform, and where you just need to make yourself safe and sort of
Yeah.
let them have their feelings and get yourself to a place of safety.
Yeah. Like, I know for me, definitely, if it's ever a situation where, like, it's just me, like, I'm terrified. I can't say anything. I'm just, like, I shut up or I leave. But if it's, like, on behalf of another person, then I get, like, really aggressive about education. Like, okay, let's talk about this, especially considering, like, in a lot of cases where I'm advocating for somebody else, like, nobody actually assumes that I'm trans. So I have, like, okay, so don't hate me for a second while I say these words. But, yeah. Alright, so are you done with that one?
I think so. I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, cool. Alright, so question 3. What has your most positive experience as a transgender student been on campus? What has been your most negative experience?
I'll start. The most positive and, I mean, I've had more positive experiences like with my friends, but on campus, I was really surprised. I went into the Disability Resource Center and I had like an intake meeting, and the person I was talking to asked me about any medications I was on or anything, and I mentioned that I was trans and on hormones, and he was like super cool about it. Like, do you have a name that you want us to call you? Like, what are your pronouns? And I thought that was pretty amazing, because that's not the usual experience. So that was really cool. As far as most negative experience, like I said earlier, more than one occasion I've had people shout at me on the street, various slurs. It's not fun, but oh well.
Yeah, I think just in general, it's a negative experience to feel unsafe and to be walking around campus and not being sure where you stand with your peers. But honestly, the most positive experiences for me have been when somebody else has like corrected someone on my pronouns or my name. Like I'll literally start crying. Like if somebody like recognizes that and feels like the need to protect me and my identity, like I'm gonna start crying now. Like it feels so validating, and it's good. But that's really only happened at like QSU and in Jody's class.
Positive experiences, definitely like things like this. I've been on a few panels now in front of classrooms, talking about my sort of life story, my identity, and sort of on campus and off. Sort of just kind of increasing education and awareness. That's been fantastic. That our professors are inviting people like me to speak to their classrooms, which gives me a lot of hope for the future. So that's great. What else? Positive experiences. I don't know. I've definitely had, so like I've had professors that have carried over from sort of prior to transition or prior to like passing to now, and they have been pretty great about the name change and pronouns, which is fantastic. As for negative experiences, I don't know, I would say just sort of people who have known me like prior and who sort of almost refuse to change the verbiage they use, like name and pronouns. That sucks, because then it's like they sort of out you to your peers, which is scary and dangerous. Yeah, so I've had other students like use like she, her pronouns like in the middle of class, like we're just like in a group like all talking, and they're like, oh, she, and I'm like, okay, no. And what else? I have a lot of fear using, I do use like the men's bathroom and the men's like locker room in the gym, but I do have a lot of fear surrounding that. If someone were to find out, or someone from my past were to sort of come in and recognize me, like what would happen, kind of scares me. Because I almost like had an experience like that kind of, and like my heart was like racing. I was in the locker room, and like when I change, I try to like be in my own little corner and like look around, make sure no one's there, and then like change real quick, and then leave. But there was a guy in there, and we had gone to like elementary school together and like middle school together, and we met eyes, and I was like,
do you have a sister?
oh no, oh no. He didn't say anything, but like he looked at me like, I recognize you, and I was like, uh-oh. So I just like left. But yeah, moments like that are really sort of scary, I think.
I feel like bathrooms and locker rooms is sort of like a universal terror for any trans person. Yeah. Like, God, I feel like it's terrible no matter what bathroom I use. Like, if I go in the women's bathroom, if I'm trying to pass or not, it's just like condemning. And even if I go in a gender-neutral bathroom, it's like, do they know? Am I outing myself by going to this bathroom that I feel comfortable with? So like,
yeah, there's that weird thing. It's like it's great. I love the like 3 gender-neutral bathrooms we have.
Right.
I love them, but like also, I have this like fear, like, oh gosh, are people watching me go in here? Like, am I somehow outing myself by just walking into this and using this restroom? Like, are they going to be thinking like, oh, why is that person using that restroom, right? And then it's like,
I always really, really hope they just think I have to poop. Like, literally, that's always my hope.
yeah.
I'm so glad that's on film.
Just keeping it real.
No, like I feel like pooping just like it saves me.
Right?
Because like in a men's bathroom, right? Like if you like go into a stall and like sit down, like
Oh,
There are
yeah.
things expected of you, right? So like, if I don't have to poop, like I'll just wait until everyone leaves, and then I'll do my business real fast, and then like leave. But like, if I have to poop, like it's great.
These are
'cause
the
then I feel
issues
safe.
that matter.
These are-
They are. They're so important.
But they legitimately
Well,
are.
honestly, it takes me like 2 or 3 times as long to use a restroom now because like I feel like I have to like wait until like everyone's like out of it before I feel safe. Yeah, it's like things you don't think that are gonna affect your life, like they do.
Also, I do want the gender neutral bathrooms that we do have, or the single person bathrooms that we do have, are so out of the way. Like, I need some like here in this building in the library or
Well,
in
there's
is
one
there-
on the
in the
bottom
app.
floor.
Okay, there's
Yeah.
one.
There's
It's
one.
technically, do they change the sign? They were
There's now a paper sign.
We did
Oh.
that.
Oh, okay.
We did that
This is gender
actually with
neutral.
Jody.
I didn't know about
But like
that.
that can also be dangerous because like
Yeah.
the paper signs get like written on and like yeah they get
Yeah.
defaced because the one in the DMS there has been a paper sign on it for a
we
long
changed
time.
that one actually.
Oh, did you change it? Because it said like unisex restroom or whatever, and like it was always defaced, always when I used it. So I was like, okay, this makes me feel like a valued human being.
Yeah, when we
QSU can't put up posters because they always get torn down.
My GSA in high school, we would write like things on the back and people would be like, threats if you put it on a poster.
Yeah, we always have to get, for QSU, we always have to get our posters like put in the
The
like
glass
the glass
case.
cases because otherwise they're gone in a day.
Jody, we told him about the defaced sign in the DMS and he got so pissed off. He was so mad. And so we like printed out some more and he was just like, paper sign. A paper sign. After all that, a paper sign. He was so mad. It was so funny. But he marched us over there and then we changed it and we like taped all of it so it was harder to deface. But like, honestly, I felt so ashamed because it literally was just a paper sign. Like you could literally just rip it down. But every time I used that bathroom, it was just like, I mean, I probably deserve that. Like, I felt ashamed to see it, but I felt like it was earned, you know?
Yeah.
And I just thought, I feel so bad.
Yeah, it's like the rest of the world gets these fancy actual signs. Here, you can have a paper sign. It's like haphazardly taped on a door. There's your
Got some
bathroom.
pieces torn
There you
off and
go.
some graffiti on
Your
it.
bathroom. Yeah, I mean, and those things aren't, you know, I think those things are more symbolic than anything, right? Like, maybe you're listening to us and they're like, oh, big deal, like, there's a paper sign on your bathroom. Like, it may not be such a big deal, but I think symbolically,
Yeah,
it is
because
so important.
yeah,
Just
because I think
symbol.
that like I don't really the sign that's on the bathroom I use in itself does not affect me in any way. But I think the fact that they're like always a second thought and they're always being torn down and written on is more like it gives you a better idea of the campus's attitude towards trans students. Because like, I mean, why else would they be writing slurs on them and tearing them down? But
Alright.
On we go.
Wait, I didn't say
Wait.
main things for the other thing, but.
Oh, wait, no, go.
Okay, no, just basic things like, okay, wait, so positive experience was like at the beginning of my first semester, I wasn't sure how many people I was going to come out to or what, because I was just kind of starting to use they them pronouns and things. But I was like giving someone some social media thing, and it had like, I had NB in it, which is like short for non-binary. And they were like, oh, are you non-binary? Like, what pronoun should I use? Like, I'm like, I was so like, oh my god, you know about this, and you're asking me this, and it was really exciting. Like, when people actually are like, oh, what are your pronouns? And I'm like, thanks. And then, so yeah, I don't know, I've actually had much more of that than I expected, which was exciting. And then, negative has been more, I really like arguing on social media, because I'm an idiot. And some guy in Yik Yak was talking about some trans woman who had come in and spoken to his class, and kept misgendering her, and I like started arguing with this guy, and at one point, he was saying like, oh, well, there's these different types of trans, and I don't have to use this person's pronouns because they're not doing this thing yet, and I'm like, you're wrong. And he's like, I'm like, I'm transgender, like I know what I'm talking about. He's like, obviously I learned more about this in an hour than you, and you are a trans.
A trans.
It was just so weird. So.
Oh my god. I hate when I like try to remind people like, hey, trans people exist. They are amongst you. And they get so defensive, like, I know what trans people are. I know. Shut the fuck up. But it's
When
obviously
they're
you
like,
don't.
oh, but there's so few, and you're like,
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. Alright. So, question number 4. If there was something you could change on this campus to improve your experience, what would it be?
Education.
Yeah.
This is a place of education, right? Let's make it fun.
True.
Yeah, that's all I can ask for ever.
Honestly.
Hopefully this video helps with that,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Ask people's pronouns. Do it. It might be awkward, but gosh, it's so much better than misgendering people. Like, it's really this easy. Bailey, demonstrate. Hi, my name's Charlie. I use he/him pronouns.
my name's Bailey, I use they, them pronouns.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Gosh, that wasn't so bad, was it? Try it sometime. It's great. You might learn things about people, and you might be that change. I don't know, that like, and just kind of being there, being visible, and saying those things. Like you might open up somebody's world, right? Like, if you introduce yourself to someone like that, and like they are in fact trans, like you could be, that one person in their life that sort of, is there and is like, I'm respecting you, and it's like, those things are so important. Like, just having like one person visible in the world sometimes is so important. So.
Because I think to people who don't have to experience this kind of thing every day, you misgendering someone or taking the time out of your day to make sure you don't misgender someone, that's like 30 seconds out of your day. That's a minor inconvenience. For a trans person who's being misgendered consistently, that's every day, their whole day, all the time, and that really wears on a person. And it's so easy to not be a part of that. So try harder.
And then also, I worked for Trans Lifeline for a while. It's a suicide hotline for trans people by trans people. I was only on it for a couple months just for a couple of scheduling reasons. But there are some people who legitimately don't know about trans issues until like their late 40s, and then they find out and they're like, oh my god, that's me, and I never knew that. I finally have something to explain my life and all these feelings that I never just knew about. And just being open to giving education to anybody in your life, it can be such a changing experience. And it really takes nothing at all on anybody's part. People like to say that they're allies, but then they just say that, and they don't actually act on it. Like, you have to take the effort to act on it. It's literally just being a good person.
Yeah. And remember, like, we all make mistakes. Gosh,
Yeah.
I am a trans person, and like, I have misgendered people in my life, right? Like, even sometimes, like, I'll be talking to another trans person or about them, and I'll, accidentally misgender them just because, we spend such a long time being conditioned, right? We're conditioned based on, physical cues about a human being, and sort of we're conditioned to gender them, like, immediately, put them in a category in our brain, and it happens, right? We make mistakes, but like, so what? It's a mistake. It's okay. Like, don't freak out. Don't like get weird about it. Just apologize and correct yourself and move on, right? Like, just because you've misgendered someone or something, like, that's not the end all be all, right? Like, we'd rather that you just apologize real quick and then just go back to using the correct pronoun. Like, we would prefer that than you to just like shut down and be like, I'm not an ally, like, I can't. No, stop. Like, it's okay. We all make mistakes. So.
I think that's really important, because like I've had people misgender me before and immediately just launch into this whole like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, and it's like I know it happens. Just say, oh, I'm sorry, and correct yourself and move on. Like, I've misgendered myself before. Don't worry about
Same.
it.
I swear I misgendered myself more than like other people do.
Yeah.
Like,
It happens.
I'll dead name myself.
oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
wait, at me?
I don't know.
Yeah, the conditioning that we go through as young people in the world is so strong, and it takes work, and it takes sort of a conscious effort to overcome that. And not that bad once you get in the habit. It's not.
Alright. Fantastic.
That was awful.
Talk about the
No,
chair.
we're good. Okay, so is there anything else we'd like to add?
Chair.
Huh?
The chair.
Oh
And
shit.
day. That's
Oh,
okay.
and we can also talk about how it's today.
Okay,
So,
yeah, okay. So, in addition to this video and the amazing experience that it is to get a couple of trans individuals from campus to come talk about their experiences together, today also happened to land on, oh my gosh, November 20th.
Yeah.
That's the date today. It happened to land on November 20th, which is Trans Day of Remembrance. And what that is, it's a day put aside every year. What was the woman's name?
Oh god.
I was trying to remember this, but I always forget. I'll
We
put
can
up
just pause it and like.
I'll put up some text about it. But it's put up every year to honor and pay respect to all of the transgender people who have been killed and murdered throughout the year. Generally, there are vigils throughout the country and in other countries as well, where we have a list that's compiled. Sometimes there aren't names because they've been so brutalized that you literally can't tell who they are. Or it's hard to compile the information because families or police will misgender the people once they've been killed or passed away. And it's terrible, but that's just the nature of the statistics of trans people. But so, every November 20th we do pay our respects. And so, here in this chair, we'd like to symbolically take notice of the other trans people who could be here. Okay.
I think we should approach this really only positively.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, but first,
I
just
don't want to attack it.
no. Of
I don't
course,
wanna
yeah.
attack them.
True. Same.
I'm talking to you.
It means no harm. It's okay.
Okay, but real quick, I just want to talk about my work right now because I'm so pissed off about this, and I have nobody to talk to who actually understands. Okay, so like I work at Pet Supermarket, and like these representatives for like a special food brand came in, and I was introducing myself, and I paused really hard because I'm like, name, hi, and my coworker was just like, what was that about? So I'm like, okay, he's gay. We're kind of on the same level. Maybe he'd be cool. And so I told him, like, hey, I have a different name that I actually use outside of work and my legal name. And I also have different pronouns and stuff. And he got really excited. And he's like, okay, so you need to change your name tag now. And I'm going to call all the managers and tell them about this. And oh my god, it's just like, you mean so well. And I appreciate it. But it was so scary. Like, I had panic attacks in the parking lot the next, like, week every time I had to come into a new manager and have them asking me about it. And, like, for the just week afterwards, he was like, okay, can I ask you questions? I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. And his immediate response was just, like, just about my genitals. And I'm just like, why is that?
Yeah, but I think it's also, it's great that he asked that he can ask you questions. Like,
Yeah.
It's,
Like, he's really respectful about it, but at the same time, I'm just
yeah.
like...
yeah, and there are a lot of do's and don'ts, right? And it's like, for whatever reason people want to know about our genitals, like, you know, I get it, you're curious. Buy me dinner, I don't know, something. But like, also, just ask us if you can ask us questions, right? It's simple, like,
In private.
And yeah, not in front of like 5 people. They may not know. That has happened.
Yeah,
It is
God.
scary.
Oh my
Don't
God.
out me, please.
Being outed, especially by someone that you trust, is the most terrifying experience, and also you feel so betrayed.
It's
Like,
awkward too.
yeah.
So awkward.
Because, like, somebody that you'd otherwise trust with anything, if they out you, suddenly you're just like, is this information safe with you then? If you'll do that? Like, it's just scary.
And then one of the questions I get really, really often is, people always ask me, well, how do I, like, bring up a story about you that was, like, in the past or something? And I'm like, it's really not that hard, you know, like, use the pronouns that I prefer now, right? Be like, oh, when Charlie was 15 or whatever, right? He, blah, blah, blah. And, like, if gender is pertinent to the story somehow, right? Like, if, you know, you want to talk about, like, how I had girl roommates freshman year of college or something like that, right? Like, make sure it's okay with me first, right? Or, you know, omit those parts of the story that are going to out me, you know, just in case or something like that. Like, it's, you know, it takes maybe a little extra thought, but it's really important to sort of know that. Yeah, that's a question I really get often is, like, people are like, I don't know how to talk to you about you, like, in the past. I'm like, I'm the same human being.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like that, like, person died, right? Like, it's okay to tell stories about me in the past. Just, you know, be careful not to out me or something, right? Like, so yeah, I think those are.
Yeah. And also, people tend to raise a huge stink about, like, if they knew you previously and you changing your name or your pronouns. Like, they're just like, oh, it's so hard to remember. It's so hard for me to put in this effort. But in reality, like, it's really not that hard. And people, like, cisgender people, depending on context or just individuals, change their names all the time. My brother's name is RC. I've always known him as RC, but professionally, he's Robert. To some of his friends, he's Robbie. To just one random dude at the corner shop, his name's Bob. I don't know why, but that's what it is. And nobody has trouble navigating these different names for him. It's just how it is. But for some reason, when it comes to trans people, it suddenly becomes weird. And I feel like
if you can call your friend a nickname, you can call me by my actual name.
Yeah. What were the first things that we were talking about? Because I don't think those were on film.
They're not.
Yeah.
What did we talk about?
You talked about, like, what questions are appropriate to, like,
No, before
ask.
that there was something else.
Context. Did we talk about that?
Yeah, oh, because, like, I was thinking about, like, you in particular. We actually have a friend in common, and, like, we were trying to figure out, because, like, she knows you by, like, a different name.
Oh.
And we were, like, trying to, like, figure out how to navigate this.
Yikes.
And I was like, gosh, why don't we just ask them?
Oh, hey!
Because it's important to, like, know, because you just tell your story. You just do the thing. Because that wasn't on film, right? Your
Which one?
person who came into your work.
Yeah,
Oh,
that wasn't
God.
filmed.
Yeah, on probably 4 or 5 different times. I've had people who know me from my organization as Audrey, and they'll come. I work at a fast food restaurant, and I'll have people come in, and I have my name tag with my old name on it, and I'm obviously not attempting to look feminine in any way, and they'll come in and be like, oh, Audrey, and I'm like, to all my coworkers standing right there, I'm like, no, like, you can't, like, I don't know, it's not so much a big issue for me. I know my coworkers would be fine with it if I did want to come out, but I'm not at that point yet. But for a lot of trans people, you're risking their job by doing that. Trans discrimination laws, it depends where you are, but not every state has them, and even if they do have them, doesn't stop it from happening. People do get fired for being trans, and if you out someone to their work, their family, anything like that, you're risking their livelihood, you're risking their safety. Please be careful.
Yeah, so if you see someone that you maybe know is trans, right, or maybe you see one of us on the street one day, right, you come up to us, like, just say hi, like, just maybe even you could just pretend you forgot our name, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, like, what's your name again? Sorry, right? That easy. And then if we're going by a different name that day or in that context, it's that simple. Yeah, just.
Also, if you're in mixed company and you don't know what name to use or what pronouns to use, generally the best thing to do is don't.
True.
Try to avoid using name and pronouns if you don't know and you can't ask in the moment. If you have to, use gender neutral pronouns if you can. Just saves energy, saves potential harm.
Yeah, because generally if you use the gender neutral ones, people will like, instead of being like, oh wait, like they'll just give you a weird look.
Yeah.
Because
They're like,
people don't recognize
They either
that,
won't
so-
notice or they'll give you a weird look and
Yeah.
move on.
But it'll be safer.
Yeah.
damn, just text the question. If you're at the party, just text it. Like, for real.
Also useful, yeah.
There's something I was gonna say.
I like the pretending like you forgot the name thing. I didn't think
That's
about
really
that.
funny.
That's good. I always forget everybody's names.
Yeah,
Damn.
that's good.
Yeah, it's just a really like easy way to quell
I've done it
attention.
before where like I've actually forgotten someone's first name and I've been like, oh, I'm sorry, what was, and I'll like pretend to put in my contacts and go, what was your name? And they'll tell me their first name and be like, oh no, I meant your last name, because then I don't look rude.
I love it. Sometimes people will call me out on that though. It's like, you just straight up didn't remember my name, did you? I'm just like,
What are you talking about?
I feel like there was something else.
there was.
There's plenty of, I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
There's plenty of
True,
other
honestly.
Yeah.
Just talk about whatever, because we can edit it and just like pick
Transgender.
what's, the best and, stuff that's not too repetitive, because we don't want it to like say the same thing over and over again. Our video is only going to be like 5 minutes.
That's what,
I'm feeling like it's going to end up
it's
more
like-
than 5 minutes.
It's gonna be like 15 at least. Jody
Yeah.
said we can make it longer.
Yeah, and I
Well,
feel like
But not
this
just, like,
video,
pertinent information.
yeah, and I feel like this video, it's gonna have to be longer than 5 minutes. I don't think there's any way we can address everything that needs addressing in 5 minutes, especially since we're also going to go talk to the administration in whatever way we possibly
Oh
can.
my god, everybody's out of the office.
I'm thinking that maybe we can interview Shannon on the 30th when she comes back.
Let's just fucking Skype her.
Yeah. We could do that. I'm down for that.
And then record the Skype. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even just ask her for some kind of written statement. It's just that we wanted to talk to all of you before, going to them, because then we can take what we
Authentic.
yeah, and we can take
information.
like the things that are most important to you and ask them about that and how they plan on, for instance, educating the university more. I mean, the safety zone training thing that's happening is going to be amazing, but
I
Oh,
hope it's
yeah.
comprehensive.
One of the things
Well,
Yeah, it's-
actually, like me and the rest of the QSU board were like collaborating
Mhm.
with Jeff. He showed us the whole presentation, was like asked for our opinions, and we went through the entire thing slide by slide and like edited it and
Oh,
basically made sure that it was comprehensive.
Nice.
So
one of the things we could do is like, if some way we could disseminate information to like professors and TAs. Is that the wrong word?
That's a good word.
No, I've never heard that word.
No, that was
it's a
the wrong
lovely
word.
word. I love the word dissemination.
If we could do that, like to professors and TAs, about sort of how to address these issues of like, when you like start class or something, like in the beginning of the semester, right, can be really awkward sometimes
Mhm.
for us. If just they could, ask people, if a lot of professors do this whole thing where you like stand up, say your major, whatever, like they just throw in like, oh, also say your pronouns, right? Just an extra 2 minutes out of their teaching, like out of their classroom, and that can make a lot of people feel really, really safe and really, really good. Like just such small things can be really, really important to some people. Like if I walk into a classroom and they ask me to introduce myself and ask me to use my pronoun, I'm like, oh wow, like thank you, and like things like that.
also though, whenever I've done pronoun introductions with groups of cis people, it usually just ends up with them laughing and like, why do I need to do that?
Yeah.
So I think a little
Introduction, maybe.
Yeah, a short explanation would be nice.
Yeah,
So.
if the professors
Yeah.
can do that in their
Yeah.
little position of power.
And again, like hopefully this video, because Jody does want to use it for trainings for, the staff and faculty on campus. Hopefully this video, hearing your voices in particular, is very helpful.
Yeah, being cognizant that our names may not match what your roll sheet says. And when you take roll at the beginning of the class, right, and I don't say here, and then I come up to you after class and say, you know, this is me, and I point to a name, that I go by this name, you know, respect that, and like, just, you know, it's not that hard. Write it down, right? Something like that, because like, they can be really, especially even professors that like, they'll have known you before, so they'll have had you before, and they like look at you and they like call your dead name, and they're like, I know you're here. And they're like looking at you. It's like, okay, help me. Yeah, thanks. So that's the thing I think that's important, is just like for professors to maybe be cognizant of that when they're taking a role.
And then this semester in my psychology course, at the beginning of the semester, I emailed all my professors about this. One of them just straight up didn't respond. So, but the only interaction I ever had was with the TA, and she was pretty cool about it. But with one of my courses, a lot of it was like individual groups, a computer lab, check in, check out. And so amongst like the head teaching assistants and the actual professor, like they were all aware of the situation. It was under my impression, from what they said, that they'd passed that along to all of their other teaching assistants. So that when I came in and checked in with my ID, and was like, okay, it's actually going to be under this name, they would understand that and put that name on the sheet for whoever was teaching the class that day. But then today, like, that didn't happen. I was just so offended. Like, I went through all of the effort to talking to all of these different people so this could happen, and then just for nothing. I don't know, just making sure everybody's aware of the situation so that doesn't happen. It was really harmful. I spent the entire class thinking about that instead of the actual information.
I had someone at the DRC one time call me as my dead name, and then Audrey, and then my last name, as if it was my middle name.
Oh!
It was so weird.
That's awkward.
Yeah.
Like, why?
I've also had that there, where like I'll be called, they'll just like switch off, and I'll like get called both names like on and off, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've had people do that. Like they'll start with your current name, right? They'll start, and then they'll like suddenly go back to your dead name, and then it's like, what? Like, I don't, it's like weird, like as if. But like I've had somebody do it like consciously, like they call me like both names, like one right after the other, like as if both of those are my names. Like no, no.
What's the thought process behind
Right.
that?
They don't want to be wrong or something. It's like also you can just ask.
Yeah.
It's like on an essay when you don't know anything, you just regurgitate all
All
the
of it.
information
All
on the
of it.
paper.
Yeah, you just say all of it, like the same sentence, like over and over and over again, but like with different words.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay to ask. I think that should just be our big message.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
the most important thing. Just ask. It's okay.
Oh my gosh.
And like, if you mess up once and someone doesn't correct you, don't assume that's because they're okay with it. They might be uncomfortable correcting you or something. So don't just continue to use the wrong thing. Like if someone doesn't correct you, like be like, oh, try to remember. Because sometimes people aren't comfortable being like, oh, in this situation, do the thing.
That's legit why I cry when other people correct stuff for me. Like, if somebody dead names me or uses the wrong pronoun when I've already told them about this stuff, and then, so they already know, I'll just sit there and shut down and just like, it was for nothing. My life sucks. I'm just gonna be swallowed into the pit. But then somebody corrects them and it's just like, I have meaning. It's that easy. It really is.
So I guess, what would you tell like your fellow students is like the most important thing in being supportive and being an ally? Like,
If you're gonna call yourself an ally, you better mean that. I've had so many people call themselves allies, and then like they'll say like, I'm an LGBT ally, but really they're just an LG ally.
Or
And-
they just like gay porn.
Yeah.
Like, straight up!
Yeah.
Educate other people
Yeah.
Please.
Being an ally doesn't mean I tolerate you, it means I actively support you. If you're gonna be an ally, you need to be prepared to really stand up for people. And because oftentimes, like for our own comfort or our own safety, we can't do that. So by calling yourself an ally, you're taking on that responsibility, and you need to mean it. Because otherwise, if someone calls themselves an ally and I trust them, and then they give me a reason not to trust them, it's kind of worse than if they'd just been a bigot from the start, because at least I didn't have to have like this false image of them in my head. So.
Yeah, I think, and also, I've seen allies get very sort of aggressive and almost giving a bad name to the movement in a way, just sort of fronting it in such an aggressive way.
Yeah.
And like that is not our approach. Like I think I kind of speak for the community when I say that like sort of violent and aggressive means of correcting people and educating people, that's not what we stand for. That's not effective. It's just not like what we want. Because when you're out there, you know, being an ally and really aggressively like attacking people,
It's not your place.
Yeah, it's not your place, and it's like it also just like that person's interaction now, they're gonna be like, oh gosh, like a trans ally was like really just mean to me, and like that's gonna be their idea now of our community, and we don't want that. It can be very harmful for communities. So.
I've known like activist types who just get so angry over things that they have no business being that angry about. Like, I appreciate that this is something you're passionate about, but when you, like, especially when someone's just ignorant and they genuinely don't know, I've seen people just like start screaming at other people and calling them names, and like I said, you have no business doing that. Like, it's not appropriate ever. And also, like he was saying, that's not what is gonna make people really think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they're not gonna get screamed at and then immediately go out and educate themselves about trans issues. Like, if someone's being actively hateful, and that's another thing. I mean, if you want to get mad, fine. But it's just, I don't know. Especially in the wrong settings. I've seen people like do that in classrooms, and it's just not the time or the place. I don't know that there's ever a time or a place. So.
Any other thoughts, comments?
Yeah, be trans is cool.
10 out of 10. Would recommend.
Okay, but no, for real. I think one of the really important things, I've already said this, but about information and just letting people know that trans is a thing. It's like, there are definitely people who could explore their gender identity and find something that they didn't know about themselves. Even cis people should take the time to unpack what they know about gender and how they feel about their own presentation and themselves, and just look through that and examine that. It's good for you. It really is.
Oh, Price, you were talking yesterday, I think it was yesterday, about, what was it? Something really awesome. Like, it just kind of blew my mind. But, I can't remember what it was now. Oh, God.
Wait, when was it?
It was this week, for sure. I know that's
I hardly remember yesterday, bro.
It's a big ring of time.
Honestly.
I've seen you so much much this week, and it kind of just kind of blends
true.
together. You were talking about. What was it? Oh God. I really don't remember, but it was.
Do you have like the vaguest idea?
I did before I started speaking.
Damn it.
happens.
And it left my head.
Okay, what did I do this week?
It was.
You make my
It
casserole.
was.
I did eat your casserole. It's fucking fantastic.
Yes. No.
Was it in class?
It wasn't in class. We were walking when you were talking. I think
I say so much. All I do is
you
talk.
do. You do, but
Oh no, you'll think of it later.
yeah,
I'll bring it up later if it's relevant.
yeah. Hopefully,
Hopefully.
I'll probably think of it at 2 a.m. and
Well, text me. Just be like, I remember.
Yeah, and then we'll video it. Then we'll have to like video it next week.
Cool.
Um,
Oh my god. Yeah.
Do you need a napkin?
Yeah.
I brought
No,
napkins.
Shh, it's fine. We're good. Shh. Nobody knows.
Okay. Do you maybe want to do the like introduction thing with like the words and definitions?
Not today.
Okay.
Okay, I kind of have a question.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I have a friend, and okay, I live in Nye, so I live in like the resident halls, and there was a trans student who identifies as male, and I guess like they were female before. It's like that's like the official record. So they were roomed with a female roommate, even though they like I think they can pass as male, and so like it was like a really quick like room change, like really close. Like so I was wondering like what your experience has been like with the university, like recognizing like your name, like do they like your new name, like I don't know, like how does that work? Is the university like supportive of that at all? Like
I changed my name legally, so I went to like the admissions and records building, the 5th building, and just brought my paperwork in, and they were like, cool, put it in the computer, whatever. As for dorms, so let's see, I lived in the dorms for 2 years. That was prior to transition, and that's sort of one of the reasons I left in a way. Like I was going to return to the dorms, but I didn't even know how to approach it. I think UNR is trying to work on getting gender neutral housing and sort of approaching those needs. But like even if they were to sort of recognize my legal gender and stuff, so like I'm legally, all right, Charles Smith, like it says M on my license, right? They would like room me with a male, but like that's very scary for me, because like what if that person found out? Like it'd be very hard to hide it from them, I think, if you're like living with them. And so like yeah, like that's one of the reasons, because like I even went into like the housing place and I like explained my situation to them, and the lady's suggestion to me was, yeah, you'd probably be better off finding off-campus housing. I was like, okay, thanks. And I just left and didn't reapply for dorms, so yeah. They're trying, but it's not.
There's probably a lot of, on their end, there's probably a lot of things that they just have to address that
Yeah.
is very difficult, so any progress, especially in terms of dorms, is going to be very slow, I would imagine, because they have to think about not only like, are we rooming them with the correct like gender person? Are we putting them in the correct situation? But also, are we rooming them with somebody who's going to be a danger to them? And are the other people in the dorm going to be a danger to this trans person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because on top of like the danger it is for a trans person to be rooming with a cisgender person who could potentially be aggressive and transphobic, there's also like one of the main anti-trans rhetoric is that trans people are all sexual predators. Like that's one of the main reasons that gender neutral bathrooms are such a big deal, is because like, oh well, a man's just gonna pretend to be a girl and then go and rape all of her little girls. And
That
it's
has
like,
never happened.
it's
There's
never-
not a single recorded case anywhere
No.
of that ever happening. Just to note, that's completely made up. Yeah.
So like it's a big issue, and mainly one of just ignorance and hatred. Like even the arguments for gender neutral bathrooms here, there were a lot of people talking about that in the debates about it.
Like, we already had gender neutral bathrooms on campus.
Family bathrooms.
Yeah, they were just not
Well,
called
family
gender
bathrooms.
neutral. They were called
Yeah.
family bathrooms because they're one stall, and they have. I think all of the gender neutral bathrooms have like a little baby changing station in them.
Yeah.
Because they're for families,
Well,
right?
even the ones in the Daily Mail are just there,
Yeah.
and no one likes like, oh, that's such an issue. Like,
Yeah, like
they're there.
it's because when you start calling them gender neutral bathrooms, that's different than saying, oh, they're just family bathrooms. And then I think cis people are like, but there's not, gender neutral is not a thing. Like, how can you be gender neutral? And that's obviously false because A, there are intersex people who are neither, you know.
That exists, yes.
Yes, there's a biological spectrum of male to female
Yes.
and female to male. Like,
Yes.
it's not cut and dry.
A
And people
genital
don't.
binary does not exist.
Yes, and you know, people say, well, gender's genetic, and no, it's not.
Sex is
not.
also a social construct.
Yes, you know, we base sex off of biology, but it's still very much socially constructed.
Biology
And-
is so messy too.
Yeah,
Honestly,
like,
there is no like categorical.
yeah, no.
There are no
And then, you know, there's people who don't identify as either gender, but people don't know this because they're just uneducated, and that's very sad. People need to be educated about the fact that not everybody is like them,
Mhm.
and what their experience of the world isn't the same experience that everyone else has. People need to be cognizant of that in all matters: gender, race, sexuality, everything.
Yeah, I think people have this
Religion,
weird thing that they need to
politics.
sort of correct other people's behaviors. Like, if you see someone in the bathroom who you don't think belongs there, like, they probably know what they're doing.
Yeah, and you know,
If they're not being like creepy,
okay.
just
I'm
you
a,
know,
I'm
just
a
let them do their
cisgender
thing.
woman, and I've used men's restrooms because I literally couldn't find the women's bathroom, and I really needed to, you know, use the bathroom.
If you gotta pee, you gotta pee.
Exactly. So, you know, I just wanted to use the toilet, and I did. Got out, was fine. You know, probably would have been really awkward had there been any actual men in the bathroom at the time, but thankfully there weren't. But, you know, that's the thing, like, it's a bathroom. All the facilities are the same except for, you know, men's restrooms have
Urinals. Literally, urinals is
and-
the only difference.
And some women's bathrooms have tampon dispensers, and not
Some.
even some.
Literally not all of them.
Yeah, and like it's so disappointing when you go into a restroom and like you need sanitary products and there are none because
Accessibility, bruh.
I
There
know
is none.
that article was so
It was so
awesome.
good. But as far as the university and names go, I haven't legally changed my name, and I probably won't for a long time, if only for the fact that I'm not even out as queer to my family. I've sort of tried, and it's just not been good. My relationship with my family is not good, and I'm not willing to cross that bridge yet. But even just explaining to the university, having a different name or going by a different name, some people are just like, they think of it as like a nickname, and they're just like, well, you're just trying to be original and shit, so no. But then some people, like, they won't take anything you say if the legal documentation says otherwise.
Oh yeah, I've definitely faced discrimination in that way. Prior to legally changing my name, I worked on campus, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go by this name now. And my coworker was like, I'll start calling you that when your documents say that. And I was like, okay, that's discrimination, and I'm a protected class in this state, so you should probably never say that again. And he didn't. So, yeah, I think it needs to be more accessible. There is a way that you can, like, in, like, My Nevada or whatever, you can put your, like, preferred name, right?
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
But like,
It doesn't
they
really
don't,
show up, though.
it doesn't show up, because I did that, right? Prior to changing my name legally, I did that. And they still, on the roll sheet, they still called me my legal name.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it exists, but like, is it accessible? Is it effective?
And like, if you can write down what name you go by, but then they ask for your net ID, and it's just like, what's the point?
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
bureaucracy.
Okay,
Okay.
so good?
I think we've covered everything, unless you
Okay.
suddenly remember what you're thinking about.
no, I haven't.
Okay, cool.
It'll come to me in the middle of the night, probably.
Props. It'll be good. Swag.
Okay. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Levi, and I'm a fifth-year senior here at the university, and I focus mostly on gender studies and racial relations, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so what are your pronouns?
My pronouns are he, him, his.
Okay. So how do you feel your identity as a transgender person impacts your experience on the UNR campus, and what has your experience been?
I think it affects a lot more things than I had originally thought that it would when I first came out. Like, it's definitely something that you have to be very forthcoming about when you go to the student clinic, you know? You have to be very honest about like if you're transitioning, whatever that entails, like with the doctors and the nurses there. And they've had a lot of change in the way that they deal with that from the time that I came out, which is really nice to see. I mean, obviously there's always room for improvements everywhere, but they're doing a lot of a better job than they were before. I think that when you're not out, and if you're deciding not to transition, or if you're pre-transition, it's a lot more difficult in general. Like, passing politics aside, like when you don't pass, like it's very difficult to be treated with like respect and dignity a lot of the time by usually in my experience, I can say from like other students for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, I've never really had too big of an issue with faculty or anything like that, or staff too much. I think overall I've had a pretty decent experience here, you know. It was pretty trying at times, and like it's definitely been emotionally difficult for the most part, but I can say that from other stories about friends from other campuses at different parts of the country, I think that I'm having a better experience in comparison, so
Yeah. How do you feel the campus's attitude is towards transgender people? Both in terms of like, not just like individual professors, but the institution itself.
Yeah.
And students. And
Yeah. I would say as an institution itself, there's just so much room for improvement. Like it's just a population that's just entirely underserved and like misrepresented, if not represented, you know, like if there is representation, it's pretty not so great, I guess, would be like the way to say that. I think that there's just so much, every aspect of the institution really does need like to be educated about transgender people and our specific needs, and like, you know, I don't think that that's anything too difficult to ask in an institution that you're paying quite a large sum of money to attend.
Especially since it's an institution of education.
Exactly.
That was a comment that came up yesterday.
Exactly.
Actually.
You would expect these sorts of changes to be happening in these sorts of institutions, rather than like, why is it being like people dragging their feet to do these things, you know?
Yeah.
Like, education is supposed to, it's based on the diversity of life, right? Like, the diversity of life is what makes up academia, and so why are we trying to make everybody the same here? You know?
Yeah.
Like, or treat them the same without understanding that you can't treat everybody one way. You have to accommodate for people's specific needs, and that's not anything bad, I don't think.
I would agree. So what has your most positive experience been as a transgender student on campus?
I would just say, like, the embrace that I've had from so many members of faculty and staff, you know, like, it was more shocking to realize that it was more often the students that had a problem with it than the teachers or professors or what have you, staff. So, I would just say so many people just embraced me and were just really kind to me and good to me, and I would say that that's been the most surprising, but also the nicest part about it.
And what do you think the most negative experience has been?
I would say, like, in times where I had specific needs, having them, like, outright, like, ignored, or, like, when I had specific issues, being told to keep quiet about them, you know, and, like, those are circumstances that I'm, like, not, that are very personal to me, but it was very important that the institution should have met me where I was at and accommodated my needs and, like, listened to what I had to say, and none of that happened. And that was a very, like, eye-opening experience for me, because I realized at that point in time how incredibly important it was to start representing students that, you know, maybe weren't in the position to do it. Like, maybe they're not out yet, you know, or maybe they're stealth, or maybe they're, you know, there's so many factors that can go into that. So if I felt that if I was in the place to do it, what was holding me back from doing it, and, like, not representing them, but, like, at least saying, like, these are people that you're not listening to, and that's not okay to do when you're charging them just as much money as anybody else to be here. You know? So I think that out of those negative experiences, I was at least able to find a need and to see where I could apply what talents and skills that I do have to that need, you know, to at least hopefully help or make a difference.
Yeah. So if you could change something on campus to improve your experience, what would it be?
I would want to see, like, a more open discussion about the acknowledgement, at least, of transgender people, and, like, how to treat us, and, like, at least that everybody's educated on the base level of things, that, like, you know, the very common decency of, like, if you know that somebody is a transgender person and you meet somebody and they don't know that that person is a transgender person, you shouldn't tell them that they're a transgender person, you know, because essentially that you're putting them in danger, because you don't know whether that person has biases or prejudices or not against, like, our population of people. And so, if anything, you just use the proper pronouns and leave it at that, and there's no really anything else that you need to be doing in that situation, or just, like, acknowledging that, like, bathrooms should be safe spaces for people, like, regardless of whether you personally believe that person should be in the bathroom or not. They have every right to be there. Just, like, very base level things like that. Like, I would like to see those covered more often, and introduced more frequently to the students. And I think that obviously, like, people have stipulations as to how do you do that, this and that, but you can just work those sorts of things out.
Yeah.
That would be at least my suggestion.
Yeah. So in terms of education on campus, I know that they're going to do safety zone trainings for hopefully all the faculty and staff, and the QSU board has seen the safety zone, like, training with, like, PowerPoint and everything, and, like, been trained so that they can help improve that, so that it's more inclusive and more correct, I guess. I mean, obviously, there's just so much that goes into all different kinds of being queer and
Right.
all sorts of things, so that it's impossible to cover it all.
Yeah.
But hopefully
It's
the input of QSU really helps safety zone trainings on campus be more inclusive and better informed, I guess.
That's really good.
And apparently it's been several years since there were any safety zone trainings on campus.
No.
So that's hopefully very helpful. And I know that some people in the center feel that in addition to staff, students should be exposed to safety zone trainings as well.
Yeah, totally. I think it would be a really good thing to implement for like freshman students, and then
Yeah, I mean,
have like maybe, I don't know, it would be something that would have to be worked out and
yeah, I mean,
logistically.
they
you
could
know.
include it in orientation.
Yeah, totally. Like that.
And it's not going to change everyone. That's impossible. But I feel like there's a lot of people who don't have any idea about queers at all,
Yeah.
whether they're trans or gay or bi or pan or whatever,
Yeah.
however they identify. So they spew a lot of things that they think are accurate because that's how queers are portrayed in the media or in popular culture, or that's just how they've been taught.
Yeah.
And it's totally inaccurate and very, very rude and very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
And just having some kind of exposure to correct information can really improve those people who just simply haven't been informed.
Yeah, it's definitely a very good step in the right direction.
Small improvements.
Yeah, definitely. Those are
It's
really
definitely a
important to be
process to get campus to where it needs to be.
made. Yeah, well, yeah, it is. Unfortunately, it shouldn't have to be, but it's
Yeah, social change is always a process, right?
definitely, yeah.
So, I don't know. Are there any other comments you want to add?
No, I think you did a really good job. Okay.
Plus, like, yesterday's stuff. So, I'm gonna turn that off now.